And welcome to the Ward 5 City Council Candidate Forum. Before I start, I'm just going to give an announcement for Lorraine Smaller. The Minneapolis has provided water so we can avoid the all the water reusable or not reusable water bottles. So around the corner, whatever is a way to fill in your water bottle. My name is Vicki Olson. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters, but not a resident of Ward 5. I'm pleased to be moderating this forum this evening. As we begin the forum, we recognize that we come together today as a community, once again shocked and traumatized by gun violence. Let us join together now in a moment of respectful silence to mourn those lives lost, acknowledge those injured and affected by senseless acts of violence, and reflect upon what each of us might do to end gun violence in our community. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan volunteer organization with a long history of providing unbiased candidate and issue information that's widely used by voters regardless of their political beliefs. This forum is co-sponsored by Northside Residents Redevelopment Council, NRRC, the North Loop Neighborhood Association, and the League of Women Voters, Minneapolis. The views expressed are those of the candidates and not those of the League or the co-sponsors. Neither the League of Women Voters nor its co-sponsors endorse or oppose candidates or political parties. We are holding this forum for voters to hear from the candidates and to compare their ideas. This forum is being held in front of a live audience at Lorraine B. Smaller Park and is being live streamed to the League of Women Voters Minneapolis's YouTube channel. Please note that in a forum, candidates are asked questions to which they will respond directly to the audience and not to each other as would be in a debate. The candidates are aware of and have agreed to this format. The recording of this forum will be available in its entirety after the forum, and you will have a closed caption option available in multiple languages. Thank you to MCN6 for the production and recording of this event. We ask that campaign buttons or campaign t-shirts not be worn at this event and that no signs or literature be distributed during this event. Please remain as quiet as possible while the candidates are speaking so that everyone can hear the discussion. We would ask that you hold your applause until the end of the forum so the candidates will have the maximum time to respond to your questions. Finally, please silence all electronic devices. So about the ward, Ward 5 is located north and west of downtown Minneapolis. On its eastern border lies the Mississippi River. Theodore Wirth lies partially on the western side, and 15 parks can be found within its boundaries. One high school, North High, and a middle school and 2 elementary schools are located here. This is a historic and culturally diverse area which includes mostly residential neighborhoods. The North Loop has become a popular arts, entertainment, shopping, and dining destination. 7 neighborhoods are represented by Ward 5. In the northernmost area, Jordan and Hawthorne. In the central area of Ward 5, near North and Willard Hay. And north and west of downtown is Harrison, Sumner, Glenwood, and the North Loop. All candidates on the ballot were invited to the forum, and 5 are with us this evening. They are in alphabetical order: Ethrophic, Burnett, Maurice Ward, L. Ward, Pearl Warren, Miles Wilson, and Andrea Young. We thank the candidates in advance for engaging in a respectful and civil discourse. We have timekeepers sitting in the front row, so each candidate has the same amount of time to respond to the questions. Following the opening statements of 1.5 minutes, each candidate will have up to 1 minute to answer each question and 1 minute to make a closing statement. The timekeeper will hold up a card when there are 15 seconds remaining and a stop card when time is up. We ask that the candidate finish their sentence and stop at that point. We expect this forum to last approximately 1 hour and 30 minutes. Questions are based on community concerns and were developed by our committee, submitted in advance from co-sponsor surveys, and solicited from the community at large. During the forum, we will also take written questions from the audience until 7 p.m. A volunteer will gather the questions and hand them to our question facilitators and then to the moderator, myself. We'll ask the questions be clear, pertinent to the issues at hand within the scope of the office, and made in the form of a question, not a statement. All questions are carefully reviewed and rewritten when necessary to make sure they are directed to all candidates. They're forward-looking, not biased, and not of a personal nature. We look for a balance of topics that affect all of us, both locally and the city as a whole. To get to as many topics as possible, we will limit the number of questions in each category. We may consolidate the questions of the same general topic. If you feel your question was not addressed, please follow up with candidates after the forum. Finally, all submitted questions are the property of League of Women Voters Minneapolis. Now let me introduce you to the candidates. For the candidate's opening statement, we ask that they address the question, why are you running and what are your qualifications? Each candidate will have up to 1.5 minutes to respond. It was determined by drawing numbers that the first candidate to speak is Candidate Wilson. Candidate Wilson.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Miles Wilson. I want to thank you all for being here tonight. I'm running for Minneapolis City Council in Ward 5 because as a lifelong Northside resident, growing up just blocks away from the area, I understand what this neighborhood, what this city, what this ward can be when we have the proper and active leadership in place. I look to bring to the table constituent services that actually listen, act, and deliver on the concerns, the voice, the ideas of our constituents. I look to bring public safety and make sure that all neighborhoods, all families, all residents, business owners, and organizational leaders and faith leaders feel safe in our area, people that come through feel safe in our area. And lastly, I look to bring economic development into our area where we have underserved corridors that we need to have resources that reflect our neighborhoods, our ward, and also have things that bring in economic stability into our area. Why I'm qualified to run for city council is I have a background in contract and policy writing. I write policies for Voya Financial currently, and there I write life insurance, disability, and supplemental health benefits, but I look to translate that with city council policies and topics and issues. So thank you.
Okay, if you could hold your applause till the very end. We'll keep moving. So Candidate Young.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Andrea Young. I'm running because I am born and raised in Ward 5 in North Minneapolis. I moved away and came back and saw that North Minneapolis still looked the same. I've spent the last 4 years invested in my community, or 5 years technically. I was a community organizer for the Heritage Park Neighborhood Association, and I've had the opportunity to work my way up and become their executive director. Some other qualifications that I have, I'm a part of the Zero Burn Coalition, the Blue Line Coalition. I was recently nominated and selected to be the chair of the Highway Harms Policy Group. I am a part of the Bring Back 6 work that's being done on Olson Memorial Highway. But I personally just want to bring investment into the ward. I want to invest in the people, the things, the place, and I want to help elevate the story of North Minneapolis being a beautiful place to live, work, and play.
And Candidate Warren.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Tanitha Pearl Warren, a Minneapolis City Council Ward 5 candidate. I'm currently the Homeownership Development Manager with Twin Cities Habitat for Humanity. I am HUD certified. I've held my Series 7 securities license, my life, accident, health, property, and casualty insurance license, and my Series 66. I've also held a community expert teacher's license with Minneapolis Public Schools for 8 years, where I was a lead literacy intervention specialist. I am running for Minneapolis City Council because Ward 5 is at the precipice of change. I believe deeply in sustainable housing for our ward. I also believe deeply in improving our economic stability, which means that we will recycle our tax dollar within our community by making sure that we have businesses that are sustainable within our ward. I'm also passionate about public safety and constituent services, ensuring that we are meeting the needs of our constituents and having the safety that we need in our community for our families. Thank you.
And Candidate Burnett.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ethrophic Burnett, and I am running for 5th Ward City Council. Why? Because I believe that the 5th Ward residents deserve to have a champion. You guys, we all deserve to have someone that can go in there from day one and take our issues and concerns to each and every department that needs to be done. I am that one. I am the person that knows for the last 8 years, I've been a city employee. I understand policy. I understand that under this current structure, the city council only has 3 buckets of job. One is constituent services, right? Understanding that constituent services is a back and forth thing, meaning that 33,000 is my board members. I represent 33,000 plus. I answer to 33,000 plus. You guys are my boss. And so I look at that like that. I look at it like 33,000 members that I have to answer to, I have to engage with, and I own accountability with and transparency. And so knowing that and knowing that I have to have oversight and accountability over every dollar, over every budget, every dollar, every program, and making for sure that everything that we do in the city, Ward 5 will not be left out. It will have racial equity and inclusion in every dollar, in every program. I am running because 5th Ward deserves to have a champion that can take it from day one and move our issues and concerns. Thank you.
And Candidate Ward.
Hello, my name is Maurice L. Ward. The reason I'm running is because I'm not supposed to be here, because I've been counted out, because I represent a voice that's voiceless. That's why I'm running. I'm running because I understand this is not a student council race, it's a city council race, and it starts with advocacy. Advocacy first. And what does advocacy looks like? Pushing policy, understanding the diversity in the community, but it's also understanding that with what comes advocacy comes boots on the ground. I'm the only individual sitting here that's actually working in the community currently. I have my own organization. It's called JIVE, Justice Impacted Individuals Voting Effectively, and we stay in the community. Besides that, I have a master's degree in advocacy and political leadership. I have a master's degree in nonprofit and private organization. I have an undergrad degree in engineering where I graduated cum laude. Not to say that I'm a person of the streets and I understand what's going on. And I thank you for making me your #1 choice in November.
Now we move to the questions from the live audience and those submitted in advance. Candidates will have up to 1 minute to answer these questions. We will begin with Candidate Ward. The first question is under the category of community safety and policing. In our opening remarks, we referred to the recent incidences of gun violence and asked community members to reflect upon what they might do to end gun violence. As a city council member, what actions would you propose to help reverse this trend and respond to citizens' need for safer communities?
Thank you for the question. The first thing is, what happened is terrible. With children going to school, subject to a place where it's supposed to be safe, my mic's going in and out, is a horrible situation. When it comes to gun violence and what I would deal with the situation is first and foremost is that I think that what we're missing in this conversation is the fact that the people who produce the guns aren't being held liable for the things that they do. That's the first thing that I would target and challenge. The other thing is gun safety. A lot of individuals own guns, but they really don't understand how to utilize them. So I would definitely put in some form of gun safety, whether it be locks on guns, whether it be education, it'd be something like that. Thank you.
Candidate Wilson.
So the question was in regards to gun safety?
Right.
Okay. So my view on gun safety has to do, from a city council perspective, is to create community forums and community spaces where we talk about the issues that are happening in our individual neighborhoods. It's like a see and act space where we have representatives from each neighborhood talk about what's going on, what's happening, so that we can create solutions surrounding these topics. If it is guns that are ghost guns or not registered, we can talk about, do we need to increase visibility in those areas to support reducing them off the street? We can talk about supporting laws and policies that surround gun safety, gun issues, and visibility on what's happening, where those issues are happening. So my idea will be around, again, the starting of the topics of conversations around these issues. So, thank you.
Candidate Burnett.
Well, fortunately, I had the experience of working in violence prevention since 2020 when our city was on fire. And so I understand firsthand about gun violence and gun safety. I understand that I was one of the ones out here passing out gun locks, getting them from DPS at the state, asking for gun locks, asking for the safety boxes. I believe that we should have a policy within the city, and also work with our state legislature to make for sure that we have safe surrender is one, right? Because some people have guns that they want to surrender, but once they surrender those guns and they run them through CODIS, they come back with a hit. That means whoever turned that gun in will get arrested. So one, safe surrender. Two is making for sure that we have legislators that's not just with the city, but also with our state and our county, because whatever happens in the municipality needs to make for sure that we work with our counterparts at the state, so it can become a state legislative thing, not just the city. Also, when it comes to gun safety, I would think about mental health, that we need more mental health services.
And Candidate Warren.
Thank you for the question. With respect to the lives that were lost in the incident that happened on last week that was devastating for our community, one of the things that was not discussed was mental health. One of the things that can be done with respect to gun safety and gun control is that there are mental health backgrounds that are done with the issuing of all firearms. I've never seen a firearm get up and walk and go and kill someone, but I've seen people who have suffered from severe mental health issues take the lives and inflict harm of one another, other people. Co-occurring disorders and mental health issues are a real thing, and those things need to be addressed with respect to gun laws and gun safety.
And Candidate Young.
I believe in gun buyback. I believe in policy and reform. I also believe in showing up for your community. I've been having conversations with a lot of people this week about what happened in South Minneapolis. And I personally think that it starts in your own community. When we see crime happen in our community, how do we show up in that way? And I think that it's super important to make sure that these young individuals that are being harmed or utilizing these guns know that they have people to look to, talk to, de-escalate situations. I believe in mental health. I believe in funding programming so individuals can have other things to do besides want to play with or utilize guns.
Our next question is, how will you address concerns about police accountability, transparency, and the relationship between law enforcement and the community? We'll start with Candidate Burnett.
Well, first of all, police are human beings too. They are people too. They have families too. They need to go home to their families as well, right? And so when it comes to police accountability, yes, we need to make for sure that they do their job. Their job is to protect and to serve. Our job as community members is to make for sure that we do our job as community members and engage with police officers. When it comes to accountability, yes, police do need to have accountability, but I also think that it needs to be accountability and making sure that they have mental health services, that they utilize those things that the LEFA said that they need to do, that they utilize it. And it's not just a checkbox for when the consent decree is done, but it's mandatory. It's mandatory because our police officers go to terrible scenes, so they need to make for sure that their well-being is addressed first and foremost. And when it comes to community, I believe in having coffee with the cop. I believe in that because my free slaving is my kid's uncle. So there's no way that I want the police officers to know who our children are, so they will not have an OID number, that they can come home without going to jail.
Candidate Ward.
When it comes to the police, I just think a lot of stuff's been placed on them. Where I come from, what I know is the community can police themselves in the sense that it takes so long for a police officer to arrive, but we know what's going on in our community. So what we can do, what a lot of communities, what a lot of neighbors have done, is stood up in their community and found those individuals that were causing problems and got them out the neighborhood. When it comes to accountability with the police, of course, there should be some form of accountability, but how that works and the intergovernment policies related to it, I just think they're just too much being placed in the police department and not enough is being placed in our communities. And I think our communities could really step up, and we can solve that problem of what's going on in our communities by just being on our porches and watching our children.
Candidate Wilson.
When it comes to police accountability, one thing that I'm doing right now is I'm working with the Unity Community Mediation Team and the PCRC, which is the Police Community Relationship Council, and we're working on these issues: accountability, transformation, and reform. One thing that we're working on right now is a mentorship program for our incoming cadets and CSO officers. What I do think that can be emphasized, especially at the council level, is communicate these things. And that's where I go back to the idea of having a community forum consistently every month that will allow us to talk about what's happening with our police department. Where are they at? What are they doing? How are they trying to make these changes and measures? So that's what I will say about police accountability and reform. Thank you.
Candidate Young.
I believe in making sure that there are actual police forums that allow for community to ask questions and receive feedback. I like the idea of restorative practices, so I would love to see the community and the police coming together and addressing tough issues and figuring out how to navigate through those together. I think that a way on city council with having oversight over like the police, you hold them accountable maybe with funding, and I don't necessarily mean defund them, but if they aren't meeting the qualifications or doing what they're supposed to do, I do believe that maybe their budget should have some cuts when it comes to how much money they're receiving and how much they're being paid.
And Candidate Warren.
Can you repeat the question, please?
How will you address concerns about police accountability, transparency, and the relationship between law enforcement and the community?
The relationship between law enforcement and the community as it pertains to accountability comes with full transparency. Our community members need to have relationships with our officers. Our community members have to understand that we stop crime, officers enforce laws. And so it is our fiduciary responsibility as community members to see something and say something and make sure that we are accountable for what's happening and what's going on in and out of our communities. Ensuring that our officers are being held accountable, we need to make sure that they look like us and reflect us in our community. We also need to make sure that our officers have a direct relationship with the neighborhoods that they are supporting. I think that's really huge with the amount of things that are happening with our officers, that we're doing thorough background checks and making sure that our officers definitely reflect the communities that they're serving throughout the city.
So continuing on with community safety and policing, would you support changing or continuing the current community-driven model for public safety that includes nonprofit violence interrupters chosen by the Neighborhood Safety Department? And if so, how would you recommend oversight by the city? So we'll start with Candidate Warren.
There's no such thing as violence interruption. There's only violence intervention. The only way that you interrupt violence is somebody dies and somebody goes home. Interventions are what works. Our full-service community school model is what helps our young people stay safe and get to and from school. But violence intervention, violence interruption, the only way that you can interrupt violence is to have control of yourself. That's it. There is no such thing as violence interruption. It's only violence intervention. Thank you.
And Candidate Burnett.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Would you support changing or continuing the current community-driven model for public safety that includes nonprofit violence interrupters chosen by the Neighborhood Safety Department? And if so, how would you recommend oversight by the city?
Yes, I would recommend keeping the Neighborhood Safety Department because I do believe that violence is just like it's a public health issue. Violence is like diabetes. Violence is like cancer. And so if I'm in line to get violence because I have diabetes in my family, I want to be intervened, and I want my neighbors to know to tell me, hey, don't eat that sugar. So when it looks at violence, we look at the same thing. So when it comes to violence intervention and prevention, there are many different models, and we need to be at every step. And it's not just the city. It takes all of us. It's going to take all of us to pick up our little shovel to intervene into this violence. And when it comes to it, we need to make sure that at every step that we are at the daycares, we are at the elementary schools, we are at the high schools, we're at the colleges. We need to make sure that every step, and not only that, but also in the workplace, because violence happens in the workplace. Those teachers went to school. That is the workplace as well for them. So we need to make sure that, yes, community-based does work. Community-based intervention does work, and I do believe in it, and I will continue to fund it.
Candidate Burnett.
I am Burnett.
Oh, I'm sorry. Candidate Ward. Or Candidate Wilson, I'm sorry.
Okay, so in regards to community intervention, so I believe that kind of goes back into the last question about police accountability. I mean, as we are working on increasing and getting the police staff back into their numbers, I do think that there's a place for community intervention. I don't believe that we should be putting our community in a line of violence or gun violence or any level 3 type of community police call. I do think that the community has value in terms of what they know, what they see, and what they hear. I don't think that we have a level that the police department can be on every block and every corner of our community. So I think that that's where our community comes into play. So I think that I would adjust it a little bit by kind of redesigning what community intervention looks like, but not continue to support it the way that we're putting people in the line of fire. So thank you.
And Candidate Ward.
I think we're speaking too much in generalities right now. We need to be a little bit more specific. When you look at Laurie and Penn right now, the problem is that we don't have enough individuals in that area. The reason why is not because the community hasn't stepped up and requested it. It's the fact there's so many layers of getting actual prevention, intervention, whatever you want to call on that corner. So what would I do? I think the first thing that we need to look at is the way funding is received. And a lot of it's being obfuscated by the fact that there's so many people who have to check the box in order for it to be received. I think that we should do more direct funding to the community, those who are out there and first line witnesses to what's going on, so they have access to the resources necessary. What I mean is at LWVMpls, they've requested funds to have people out there on a regular basis, and because they don't have the funding, that is not happening. Thank you.
So our next question is, go ahead.
Could you repeat it one more time?
Sure. Would you support changing or continuing the current community-driven model for public safety that includes nonprofit violence interrupters chosen by the Neighborhood Safety Department? And if so, how would you recommend oversight by the city?
Yes. So yes, I do support violence interrupters. I believe that it has helped with the crime, the reduction of crime that we are seeing in Ward 5 specifically. The only thing I might change would maybe be the amount that is going to certain groups, based off of the things that I hear. It sounds like some groups are funded more than others, so I would maybe have more oversight into that, but I do think that the model works.
So we're going to move on now to affordable housing and homelessness. Our first question is, how do you plan to support residents who are facing housing instability or homelessness? And we'll start with Candidate Young.
I believe that each individual that is unhoused or facing the crisis, they all have a particular story that would require a different level of support. But I do believe in funding more mental health. I believe in funding drug reduction or abuse, like substance houses, homes. I believe in shelters. I believe that Ward 5 has areas that we could potentially put some. I believe in investing in those people and making sure that they get the support that they fully need. And I do believe that that requires actually having conversations with those individuals to better understand the support that they need.
Candidate Ward.
Again, with specifics, again, back at LWVMpls, I think dignity and humanity given to those individuals, first and foremost. You have individuals that's using the bathroom outside because they're not being given porta potties in that area, and they come up with all different reasons why, but we know bigger cities can do it. I think when you start with dignity first, and then you have an outreach that's out there on some type of regular basis, what you start to see if people bringing up trust, because there's a lot of mistrust in those communities, and from getting people, whether it's safe use or however the use as they get weaned off of that whatever substance they might be on, then we can start talking about putting people who are unhoused into housing, because you can't put a person into unhoused and into housing if they aren't in a position to even understand what that means. So I just think there's a disconnect between this community and what's actually going on on the streets. So first and foremost, we need to get out there and understand what's actually happening. Thank you.
Candidate Warren.
I truly believe in the housing first model. The only problem is that there's a disconnect with the housing first model and the paraprofessionals that are providing housing stabilization services for individuals who are being housed. When 2016, when the city of Minneapolis came out with the homeless information management system and coordinated entry, they required that individuals fill out a personal statement of need. And with that personal statement of need, there is no communication between the housing case manager and the paraprofessionals that are keeping people stabilized. There's also a grave disconnect when it comes to ensuring that individuals are able to rapidly be rehoused after situations of violence or domestic violence. So there's work that we need to do with respect to those things in order to ensure that people are housed the way that they need to be housed and have the support wrapped around their housing. Thank you.
And Candidate Wilson?
When it comes to homelessness and housing in our area, I think that we need to be considerate of where we put or how we put up and what we're putting up in terms of housing. I am a believer and I support housing for all. So that includes resources to acclimate people back into the community. Just last night I was driving down Plymouth and got to Plymouth and Penn, and I saw a woman that was outside, and I stopped and asked her if she needed any support, and she said no. But I see that and I think about how we're going about housing developments. And that's another thing, is putting liability and accountability on our developers. You know, we have to make sure that our housing opportunities have parking, because if we put a multi-unit complex in a neighborhood like this one where we have homeowners, where are those people going to park? And so I believe that we have to be conscious about how we go about housing, and especially sensitive in our community here in Ward 5. So thank you.
And Candidate Burnett?
Can you repeat the question, please?
How would you plan to support residents who are facing housing instability or homelessness?
Okay, well, first and foremost, housing is a right. It's not an option. Everyone deserves dignified, affordable housing. It's not a one-off situation. It is a right as a human being. And though there are many of us who are at face of becoming unhoused. In this economy, we are all probably one paycheck away from being evicted, right? And so there's a lot of our community members who are facing being unhoused, and we have a lot of community members who are currently unhoused. And so when it comes to the unhousing, I believe that we need to have a policy, and working with our Hennepin County partners, working with our state partners, and figuring out what does multi-housing look like. Because just because someone is unhoused today doesn't mean that they're going to be okay tomorrow when you give them that house, because it doesn't necessarily work that way. So we need to make sure that we have culturally specific trained individuals to work with our unhoused community, understanding mental health, understanding substance abuse and addiction, and being able to address those issues first before we can look at housing. Thank you.
So our next question, we're adding an immigrant safety category. What resources and policies will you work on to keep our immigrant neighbors safe, both in Ward 5 and across the city? We'll start with Candidate Wilson.
What resources would I implement to keep our communities safe for immigrants? Our safe spaces. Again, I go back to the idea of a community formed safe space session, where I have an open door policy, and this is something that I learned in my professional world, to have these open door policies. But this space would create to talk about what issues, what fears, what traumas and triggers that our communities may be serving or facing. As a family, on my dad's side, I come from an immigrant family myself, so I kind of understand what issues, what concerns that they faced when they came to America in the 50s at least, and still see some of those issues kind of linger on in today on my dad's side of my family. Now, so with that said, is the first thing I would do is have these spaces where we can open up to talk about this, these issues, topics, and concerns, so that we can figure out solutions together, because that's how we'll do it, is doing it together. So thank you.
Candidate Warren.
This position is about servitude to our community and constituent services. So in order to keep our immigrant families safe, I would have to talk to them and find out what safety looks like to them and what that means. because I can't define safety for another person. I have to know what that means and what cultural competencies need to be wrapped around them feeling safe and included within community. And that's going to take me building relationships with individuals who are immigrant families within our communities and across the city. Thank you.
And Candidate Young.
Well, Minneapolis is a sanctuary city, so I believe in making sure that the immigrant families are aware of where they can go and find those services, whether that means I have something on my website that pinpoints locations, phone numbers for them to receive help that they need. I work with a lot of nonprofits in the community currently that work specifically with the immigrants' families, so collaboration with nonprofits that work wholeheartedly with these individuals to see what type of resources they could utilize. And then again, having conversations with families. I maybe not host them in person because if they don't feel safe, why would they maybe want to leave their sanctuary or their place of peace? So offering online or virtual, meetings where we can talk and figure out how I can be of better service to them.
Candidate Ward.
Just like Candidate Young said, this is a sanctuary state.
Yeah.
Minneapolis is a sanctuary city. I just think that the police need to understand that they're not ICE agents and keep that up. Just that understanding that they're not here to work as ICE agents and push what's going on currently in a lot of different cities. And with that being said, I think if we just manage that, we'll be fine.
And Candidate Burnett.
Well, just as the other candidates stated that the city of Minneapolis is a sanctuary city. However, I think that when it comes to immigrant safety, first and foremost, I would work with the city's Office of Immigration Affairs, that director, and working with the counterparts at Hennepin County and the state as well as bringing in the nonprofits who work with immigrants, ACERS, say tools and things like that, and making for sure that first of all, as a policymaker, I want to make for sure that I understand what they need and make sure, first and foremost, they're educated, that they have the education there at their disposal to understand what their rights are, what they need to make for sure that they are safe, what information they need to keep in a Ziploc in their purse on standby, and making sure they have all the phone numbers that they need, and then making for sure that they also have the phone numbers for legal aid, the attorneys, and where their children will be. So making for sure that if anything does happen, that they have the tools to make sure that their children who stay here or their family members who stay here are safe and they know where they at, and working with the different offices of immigration affairs, the city, the state, and the county.
So we're going to talk now about economic development and job creation. What are your strategies for attracting and supporting small businesses in North Minneapolis? We'll start with Candidate Ward.
To attract businesses, of course, tax incentives. But I think the main thing about what's going on down Broadway, down Penn, a lot of different places, is that we see a lot of boarded up buildings. So that needs to change. You can't attract businesses when they think this is a desert or it's desolate. Like I said, tax benefits, as the blue line does come in, it's going to bring a lot about different tax incentives. But the main thing about it is job creation. I think a lot of individuals who are out now believe that they can't work. But I think that we need to go out and start having job fairs on street corners, bringing people to work, bringing the work to the people, opposed to having them go somewhere where mobility and access might be a problem. I think the more we get out and let people know that there's good jobs available to them, I think there'll be more people willing to work. Thank you.
Candidate Wilson.
So to attract businesses, I've talked to a few business owners that are in the area, And some of them have expressed that they weren't really concerned with tax incentives so much, but they were more concerned with public safety. So looking in with that, partnering with the city to create solutions around public safety, to partner with our legislators around public safety initiatives, because I think that that's what's going to attract business owners to want to be in the area. Another area, as I've grown up working for the park board myself, is partnering with our park board to bring back jobs for our youth and to create spaces where they could actually serve our communities in different ways. I grew up cleaning the parks. Maybe that could be extended to help serving our corridors like Broadway Avenue, like Glenwood Avenue, Washington and Lowry Avenue. And so creating jobs for young people and supporting our business owners that we do have here is going to be very important for me for the future of Ward 5. So thank you.
Candidate Burnett.
Thank you for the question. I would work with, first of all, CPED to make for sure that we have enough money, which is Community Planning Economic Development Department within the city, to make for sure that they continue to have funding with the BTAP program, which is Business Technical Assistance, and making for sure that not only do we just have funding, because we can get small businesses into the storefronts, but we need to make sure that those small businesses stay in those storefronts. Yes, we want culturally specific businesses along our culture corridors. We want those businesses to come out of their homes into the storefronts, but we want to make sure they're able to stay, right? So how do we get them to stay? We need funding, not just for them to get into their business, but funding and tools and resources so they can stay. And working with CPED to build out that, and making sure that I work with our nonprofits such as Neon, and making for sure that they have the tools to continue to educate community, and making sure that Hennepin County steps in and give us some of the money because a lot of these storefronts and these buildings are owned by the county and the state as well. And so it all goes back to partnership, and it goes back to, most importantly, the people.
Candidate Warren.
Can you repeat the question, please?
What are your strategies for attracting and supporting small businesses in North Minneapolis?
My strategy for attracting small businesses in North Minneapolis would be to change some of the zoning to ensure that we have space for both residential and commercial, where mom and pop stores can open up ice cream shops and different things like that, small pet grooming stores, whatever you have, that would help to improve our livability here in the community. People want to live, work, and play. That's also going to help recycle our tax dollars in our wages in our ward, where people are spending more money within their community. Also talking to our residents, again, constituent services, to find out what businesses that they'd like to see within the ward and what the needs are of the community members here is going to help bring those businesses here in the ward. Thank you.
And Candidate Young.
I think it's time to capitalize off the blue line, and we start investing in the people and make sure that the businesses along West Broadway are businesses, small businesses, but also larger businesses, just bring complete opportunity into the ward. I think it's important, again, to have the conversations with the residents to see what it is that they want. I just recently attended a meeting and learned a little bit about like opportunity zones and how those are getting ready to shift as well. But being that we're not far from the North Loop and we have all this development happening around us, I feel like Fifth Ward, this is our time, and businesses are going to get ready to come into the community. And it's just a matter of figuring out how to be involved if you're interested in starting a small business. So maybe expanding information into the community on how individuals can start small businesses, educating the community.
So staying on the topic of economic development and job creation, how would you ensure that economic growth leads to equitable opportunities for all residents, especially communities that have been historically underserved? We'll start with Candidate Burnett.
Well, first and foremost, I would work with the young people, because young people are our future, right? And so in order for us to think about job creation, we got to figure out what they want to do and what they would like to do. I would love to be able to bring the trades construction council that's over there at 700 Olive Street, right here to J. Mayer's building, the renewable energy, making sure that our young people have the opportunity right here in their own neighborhood that they can walk to, bike to, bus to learn how to put up solar panels, learn how to build the house from the ground up, because that's good money. Instead of, when Centerpoint, when I knew about the light rail, when I first bought my house over here in 2013, I knew about the light rail, and I kept asking Excel Energy and Centerpoint Energy, how many 55411 and 12 gonna have those jobs? How many from 554, 08, and 07? I went to camps to ask them how many of 55411 residents work here, because the dollar needs to stay here. Instead of you taking the money out, it needs to stay here. And we need to be able to be innovative and work with our young people and understand what their future looks like.
Candidate Ward,
Question again, please.
how would you ensure that economic growth leads to equitable opportunities for all residents, especially communities that have been historically underserved?
I think you start with the kids. I mean, this summer I set up a garden and I had children come in and they worked. And I don't mean children 12 and 13, I mean children 5, 10, 12. And they learned a lot about working. They learned a lot about, we educated them. But I think what's missing in this area that majority of the areas have is a warehouse district, a warehouse area. There's no place where you have Kemp's Milk, but you have nothing else going on. So along with the, bringing work, employment opportunities to people, I think that we should invest in factories and businesses coming into a factory park where that in turn can lower property taxes and benefit the community as a whole.
Candidate Wilson.
So when we talk about underserved communities and how to kind of catch them up to speed, it is about education and communication. So the first thing that, again, going back to the concept of that communication piece is hosting these conversations early, letting them know what's to come, what's happening. As mentioned by Candidate Young, we're talking about the development that's coming into this area. We need to be on top of that right now. And if we fall behind on that conversation, that communication, then that's how we get left out in the process. So I think that one is the transparency of it all as well. So being transparent about how to get involved, educate our community on how to create things, and again, it does fall back to, we're talking about the future. So we are talking about young people at the end of the day, and communicating that to them and inspiring them as well. So.
Candidate Young.
So I think that you have to bring those people to the table. I think that there needs to be some community benefit ordinances. So anything that is to come into the community, those individuals are at the table making decisions or determining if it's going to benefit them. I believe that it's important to work with like the apprenticeships programs. For instance, they're located right inside of Deed on West Broadway. So elevating that and letting people know the importance of that programming being there. I do believe in like seeking opportunities. I don't believe in factories because environmentally they are not good for us, and we're still talking about marginalized communities that have always been harmed. I just believe in investing in the people, bringing the people to the table, seeing what it is that they want, and make sure that we continue to elevate that.
And Candidate Warren.
Can you repeat the question again, please?
Sure. How would you ensure that economic growth leads to equitable opportunities for all residents, especially communities that have been historically underserved?
I believe that you start with our young people. I believe that's something that we can gravely benefit from through the full service school model, short-term apprenticeship training programs, so that young people, when they're over summer break from high school, can have real jobs that pay them real money instead of making, $2 and $3 an hour working fast food or something like that, that they have actual jobs that help them to sustain themselves and for their families. I believe that that'll also be beneficial for young adults or what have you, or individuals who are re-entering school in their senior years or, you know, later adult years. Those short-term trade apprenticeship programs is what's going to help bring economic growth and sustainability, so long as they stay with the trades and the trends of what's happening in its current.
So moving on to transportation and infrastructure, the question is, do you feel public transportation and accessibility options should be improved in Ward 5? If yes, what are your plans for doing so? We'll start with Candidate Warren.
No. I believe that Ward 5 does not have a transportation desert. We have sufficient transportation in Ward 5. Thank you.
Candidate Burnett.
Well, first, I've been knew that the light rail was coming. The light rail meetings was happening at the park board for years. They was holding them at Met Council for years. So the light rail is not nothing new. It's new because it's just getting out here to public. But 13, 14 years ago, I knew about the light rail. They just decided to put it down West Broadway. I mean, change it from Ocean to coming down me and Pearl Block. And so, yes, I'm going to be impacted because I'm going to see it, I'm going to feel it, I'm going to hear it. But first and foremost, I believe that we need to first have the infrastructure. We should have the infrastructure built to be able to come for any type of rapid transit. And we know that the light rail right now, when we look at the ridership, if the ridership predominantly from the 5th Ward, how is it going to connect us from all over? Not just from Plymouth to New Hope, but also we need to be able to go north and south and east and west on public transportation. And so public transportation, I do believe in public transportation. I do believe in it. But however, right now, we need to make sure public transportation is safe. It's safe for all ridership. It's not just going to be safe for people to come from Edina into the Twin Stadium, but also safe for us to ride from here to work.
Candidate Young.
Will you repeat the question one more time? Sorry, I'm cold.
Do you feel public transportation and accessibility options should be improved in Ward 5? If yes, what are your plans for doing so?
Yes and no. I do feel like we have great public transportation. I went to college down south and there's nothing like it. I do feel like the light rail will be an investment into our community when it comes to getting to other locations though. So I don't feel like there's necessarily a desert because I feel like we can get to certain destinations, but when you start talking about the suburban areas, we don't have full access unless you have a vehicle, so I do feel like it's needed.
Candidate Ward.
I just feel like the question itself is a trick question. I mean, you look at what's happened in St. Paul with University, how it removed businesses, how the transportation came through. You know you need transportation out here in some form, in some fashion, but it's in transportation in lieu of being able to drive. So it's almost like if you get transportation, you have to give up being able to drive. And I don't think that's the solution. So what would be better? It's already in the works, so it's kind of hard to reinvent the wheel. But yeah, there needs to be more transportation. There's people coming home that don't have licenses. There's people that's coming home that don't want to drive. How does that look? It looks like another conversation other than what's going on currently.
And Candidate Wilson.
Should transportation be improved? I do believe it should be improved. And I believe that we should be ahead of this conversation than behind it. I do think that as we're talking about improvement, we're talking about an and situation. So a situation where we're talking about improving all forms of transportation, from rapid bus lines to the light rail, getting ahead of these issues. I mean, we're thinking about
Again, creating like community benefit ordinances. I believe in like advisory councils, so maybe partnering with residents in the community, having them, oversee maybe a certain part of funding or, different issues that are brought to them and having conversations with the community. I think it's super important. So yeah, I just think that it's important to bring them to the table, elevate their voices, and stand behind them and what they think is best, because at the end of the day, yes, I will be the representative, but technically I will be representing them.
Candidate Ward.
How would ensure racial equity and inclusion? I'll be at the table. I'll be at the table when I'm elected, and I'll ensure it, because there's not been anyone like myself at the table, and that's been the problem. Those furthest from the problem make the solutions, and we need someone who understands what's going on in the community. And by me stepping up in the most marginalized community there is and speaking, all voices are heard. Thank you.
Candidate Warren.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Certainly. How will you ensure the voices of underrepresented groups are meaningfully included in city decision-making?
Working with my neighborhood organizations and holding quarterly town hall meetings, ensuring that every resident has an opportunity to speak, and delivering constituent services, which is what Ward 5 has lacked gravely over the last few years. Thank you.
Candidate Wilson.
When we're talking about the representation of our underserved communities, again, I'm running for Ward 5, which has been underserved well before I was born. And that's what I'm running to bring to the table. I'm running to create this table that hasn't been created before, where we're talking about sitting down, again, hosting, as councilmen, hosting community forums and community sessions where we can have these open discussions about what's happening, to make sure that every voice, every idea, and every concern is brought to the table. Now, bringing back to the community is, again, with my background in policy writing, is bringing back those policies to the community, explaining what's going on at City Hall, making sure that these things don't get lost, these concerns, these ideas don't get lost at City Hall, and bringing those back to the community and say, hey, this is what's going on. So being transparent, being visible, being honest, and being accountable month to month all the way through. So thank you.
And Candidate Burnett.
Well, first of all, I will listen to the community members, because in order to do something, I have to know what needs to be done. And then after I listen, I will make for sure that I bring forward with me the City Department of Race, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging, so that they too can hear the concerns of my constituents. And so then after we both hear the concerns of my constituents, we go back to City Hall and we work out a plan and a policy to make for sure that those issues and concerns of my constituents are met and heard and seen within every program and every dollar. I personally believe that everything at the city, every program, every dollar should have racial equity, inclusion, and belonging in it. That should not be anything. That should not be a program, a policy, nor initiative that does not have racial equity, inclusion, and belonging in it. That's it. That's all.
In talking about environmental sustainability, since 2024, the City of Minneapolis has committed up to $12 to $13 million annually to support implementation of its 2023 Climate Equity Plan. What scale of dedicated funding would you support to meet Minneapolis's Climate Equity Plan goals, and where would you propose this funding should come from? We'll start with Candidate Wilson.
So where does this funding come from? So it's partnering with the state, with the county, to making sure that we have the resources to do things such as have solar power energy, to have or programs that have solar power energy from our homeowners. That's an expensive process to do on our own. And again, with this ward being underserved, we should have programs that specifically face our community that allow us to have these solutions opposed to, I mean, we look at the HERC, for example, and how much carbon emissions that produces. We want to shut that down. How do we do that? We create solutions around recycling, sorting out our trash, so make sure that we can eventually shut this down because of what the energy it produces for homes that have heat and power. So solar energy, partnering with the state, partnering with the county, to work on allocation of funds to be resourced to our communities in our city. So,
Candidate Warren.
I spoke about community sustainability, and community sustainability starts with each and every one of us, knowing what it takes to be able to sustain our communities, and the funding that needs to come down will lessen, although those are federal dollars that come around environmental justice work that trickles down to the state and then later to the county or city or what have you. But I think sustaining our city comes to the responsibility of its residents.
Candidate Young.
I believe, of course, partnering with the county and the city. I mean, if we were to shut down the HERC, which does not produce enough energy to solar power anything, but I believe if you even consider like shutting down something like the HERC and investing that money back into the community, that, I mean, you know, the funding, that could work. I don't know. I believe in like partnering with community organizations that are doing the work to figure out how much funding they need, what it would take to fund their programming. Again, thinking about solar, maybe we in our contract would excel. I don't know. There's just a lot of different things that you can consider in figuring out ways to reallocate dollars that are already circulating in that funding.
Candidate Burnett.
Well, first we can raise the taxes that CenterPoint Energy pays us, right? We can always raise that. Second of all, I believe in a community-based solar garden, community-based owned solar garden, where the community owns the solar garden, and we all work together to make for sure that we do our part for that. I also believe that it's funny because today was Climate Infrastructure and Action meeting at City Hall today, and they talked about some of these things. They talked about the climate actually plan that's coming forth and making changes to that, and making for sure that our young people and our developers understand what it means to develop in the city of Minneapolis when it comes to climate, when it comes to energy, making for sure that we partner with the U of M, because we know that the federal administration, those dollars are cut. We will not be getting no more. Those dollars are gone. And so making for sure that we strategically partner up with the U of M just particularly for this.
And Candidate Ward.
It's real simple. Tax the polluters, the bad. But on top of that, there's a lot of vacant lots that could sequester a lot of carbons. You know, instead of having them vacant, once you plant crops, they can do that. There's a lot of different. This is a conversation that's above me. I need more intel to even speak about it on, you know, intelligently. But I mean, there's little small things you can do to make it work. My main thing would be just take on some of this vacant land and sequester some of this carbon. Thank you.
So moving on to community engagement. How will you be accountable to the community for expectations to be present at council and committee meetings and votes? We'll start with Candidate Ward.
Well, I stay busy doing things. I'm probably one of the few individuals up here that have a position where I actually run my own company, so I'm accountable to myself. With that being said, I understand, punctuality. Understand the commitment necessary to be in committee. Understand what's necessary for me to make a prudent decision. With that being said, I've been my last month. I've talked to I think I've been from the North Loop to the Asian leaders to the Harrison neighborhood to everywhere. And I intend on doing things like that, staying present, staying visible, because the only way you understand what's going on in any of these neighborhoods is talking to the neighborhoods. So thank you.
Candidate Wilson.
Well, I do believe in the commitment. As a candidate, as councilman, and as I mentioned, those forums, those community spaces, and during parts of the neighborhood organization council meetings, plays a very vital role in all of this. Then you get to hear the voice of the community. Then you get to hear the voice of the neighborhoods in the ward. And from there, I think that it's easy to be accountable month to month. When you're going back to your community forum and you're telling the community what you are working on that was responded from them, and then they can be able to respond back to you directly face to face. So I think that does hold myself accountable from that space and that perspective, and that's again my goal and my intention of what I'd look to bring to the City Hall. So thank you.
Candidate Warren.
This is a position of servitude to your community. This is also legacy work. So while in council, you create your own schedule, pretty much. And you should be scheduling yourself in serving your community and showing up and being present and being visible, answering calls, talking to people, working with your business district, holding quarterly forums or monthly forums, and working with your neighborhood organizations. That is how you counsel. You can't counsel when you're not visible. So you have to be visible in community. Thank you.
Candidate Warren. Oh,
I just went.
sorry. Candidate Young. Sorry.
Simply showing up, going to work, being in my community. I love my community. Like I said, I spent the last 4 years being an organizer in this community. So continuing to do that, hosting coffee hours like Jeremiah currently has, or forums. I believe in responding to emails, returning phone calls, bumping into you at a coffee shop. Those type of things are important when it comes to being city council.
So we have time for one last question. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Constituent services is half the job of a council member, right? And so as a former policy aide for a council member, I understand the importance of calling constituents back within a 24 to 48 turnaround. I understand the importance of answering that call in the middle of the night, whether it's your personal phone or it's the city-owned phone. I understand that most of the time constituent services is about connecting the dots. Why my trash ain't get picked up? Why they ain't come and do my, they haven't came and shoveled my block yet, right? Constituent services is half the job. And learning from my predecessors, understanding that some of them who was there for over 10 years, for over 2 terms, the reason why they was over there for 2 terms is because they were the best at constituent services. Constituent services, it's about the residents. It's about the 33,000. It is not about E, but it's about us. And so us matters more than E. And so understanding that constituent services means showing up when you're tired. It means going to have those hard conversations when you don't feel like it. It means coming back with solutions. It means having conversations with individuals that may not look like you, that may not agree with you. But it's okay for us to agree to disagree and find the common ground so that we can continue to move forward. I understand the importance of constituent services. I understand the importance of getting back to each other. Thank you.
So we'll move on now to the closing statements. We have the candidates will have up to 1 minute for the closing statement, and we will start with Candidate Burnett.
I I am looking forward to represent each and every last one of you guys and some. We have 33,000 plus in this ward to being a champion for the 5th Ward. The 5th Ward deserves to have a champion. They deserve to have someone that can step in January the 5th and keep it going, right? I am that one. I am that one that's going to listen and engage with my constituents, understanding the importance of constituency, understanding the importance of legislation, and understanding the importance of oversight and accountability. I am the candidate that understands that this job has 3 buckets. It has constituent service, which is the most and foremost important, is to engage with all of our constituents. The second thing is legislative, making for sure that those policies, every policy, every ordinance that come forth got racial equity and inclusion in it. I am the candidate making sure that I understand the budget, where the money can come from different departments, how we make for sure that the 5th Ward residents are not going to be left out. We're not going to be left out of the opioid response money. We're not going to be left out of homeless response money. We're not going to be left out of another budget. We will not be left out again.
Candidate Ward.
I think Janet Jackson said it better. What have you done for me lately? I think when individuals come to your door and knock on your door and ask for your vote, you need to ask them, what have you done for your community in the last year? Okay, the last 2 years. You know, with that being said, it's going to take an individual who's an advocate for the community, understands what's going on, and not just siloed. What I was able to do just recently was get a bill passed through Minneapolis City Council that was a 13-0. It's one of the first times or the second time in the year that they all unanimously believed in what I bill or ordinance or whatever. So I plan on bringing that same being able to talk and work with different sides of the aisle. I find myself being a moderate. So if you make me your number one choice in November, you're going to get a champion. Thank you.
Candidate Wilson.
Sorry. First, I want to thank everyone for being out here tonight. It's a little bit chilly, but I want to thank everybody for pushing through and staying out. As a candidate for this race for Ward 5, I want to say that I bring this lifelong experience. I've grown up in the area. I've understand the concerns. I've heard the visions. I see the ideas. And this is about the investment. And you guys all tonight show your investment in the future of Ward 5. You understand where we're at and where we're going. So I want to again thank you all. I'm running again on constituent services, public safety, and economic development under the idea of transparency, honesty, and inclusion. So I want to thank everybody that's here tonight, and I hope you have a great night. Thank you.
Candidate Young.
Again, Andrea Young. I hope that I was able to flip some votes tonight. And I am running again because I love Ward 5, and I want to continue to help elevate the story of this being a beautiful place to live, work, and play. And regardless on if I win or I lose, I plan to remain committed and invested in my community because that is the work that I love to do.
And Candidate Warren.
Thank you all for coming out this evening. Again, my name is Tanitha Pearl Warren. I am committed to servitude to my community just as well as I'm committed to servitude to my family. I'm happy to serve as your council person. I welcome your vote. You can look up more information about me on my website, Pearl Warren, Warren for Ward 5. I look forward to hearing from you, answering any questions that you may have, any concerns that you may have, compliments, complaints, or otherwise. Reach out. More than happy to answer them. Thank you so much for your time. Have a beautiful evening.
On behalf of all the co-sponsors, I thank the candidates for being part of the democratic process by running for office and for being willing to serve our community. We hope this forum has helped you as voters make an informed decision with regards to the November 4th election. Remember, we use ranked choice voting for this election, where you vote for candidates in order of your preference, allowing you to rank your vote, first choice, second choice, third choice. This method can allow your vote to count towards another candidate if your favorite candidate loses. If your first choice candidate is eliminated, your vote is moved to your second choice. To learn more about ranked choice voting, go to the Minneapolis Elections and Voter Services website. We also thank you, the audience, for your participation in this forum in the democratic process. LWVMpls.org. LWVMpls.org. Editing of this video is authorized only for official media reporting. Footage cannot be used in campaign publicity. The recording is the property of League of Women Voters, Minneapolis.org. At this point, you can show your appreciation for the candidates by your applause. Please vote. Your vote is your voice and your power. Thank you.